Okay, the first form we want to go over is going to be the standard agreement of sale. It should be on my screen. And the only reason we're going over this, everybody's already read all 14 pages and should know it inside out, upside down, and backwards. But there's just a couple of things that I get from the other side. I don't know if you guys do, but far as relationship, what are you and who are you? I always check the buyer agent designated agency, only the licensee named above, which would be myself. I do that for myself, and I also do it for the other side, the other agent. I just make an assumption so we don't have to worry about it later, unless I know it's a team. If it's a team, I'll check seller agent, all companies, all agents within that company. I'll use that one because they're on a team. But if they're an individual and not on a team, I just take the liberty of clicking the middle one as well. Just FYI, if you're dual, obviously you can click dual agent. And if you're a dual agent, make sure that you click the dual agent over on the broker side as well on both of them. So that is fully aware, because the broker is also a dual agent, just as we are as individual agents. Moving down the agreement, the first thing I want to point out, because it'll come later, is where is the paragraph that talks about the transfer tax. It's hidden under 4F, line number 40. Here's where you would make the change if you're going to entice the seller by paying both sides of the transfer tax. This statement says here that the transfer tax will be divided equally between buyer and seller, unless otherwise stated here. Stated here otherwise, simply say that the buyer agrees to pay both sides of the transfer tax. If it's in the city in writing, I put parentheses 5%. If it's outside the city, I put parentheses 2%. This way it's doubly clear. But that's where you would put it. Do not put it only down at the end on page 14. On page 14, I would write on the bottom there, in reference to the transfer tax, please refer to paragraph 4F, line 40. This way they don't miss it, because agents don't read. They read that last paragraph on page 14, so I just mentioned for them to go up there. I don't repeat it, I just refer back up. Also, more tenant-occupied properties are getting sold. If there is a lease associated with a property, verbal or written or otherwise, if there's a tenant going to be in that property after closing, you need to click this button here for the tenant occupied property and go and get the TOP form from PAR and fill it out. It is the obligation of the seller to provide you with the leases, if they are any. If it's verbal, I'm not getting yelled at. Angela's not in. If it's a verbal lease or a month-to-month lease, unwritten lease, they need to provide you with a memorandum of the terms and conditions for that lease. And most importantly, is there a deposit? And if so, who's holding it and how much? That's what this form covers on when you have a tenant-occupied property. And if they tell you that I'm not going to give you a memorandum, hold your ground, dig in your heels, and get one. You need to know that information under terms and conditions. I'm coming across more properties being sold with the tenants remaining behind. So make sure you don't miss that. Zoning on line number 69, section 6. Again, that section will be filled in if you fill out your details sections appropriately, telling the detail sections in dot loop what type of zoning it is. That will auto-populate from dot loop. If you have a non-residential property and you're selling it and you put the zoning there, the buyer can walk away at any time for any reason and get their money back. So it is very important. So don't leave it blank if it's residential. Just get in the habit of making sure residential or commercial commercial residential, make sure it's listed there properly. Reminder on FHA and VA, if you have an FHA or VA, please make sure that you fill this section out. It is sort of the amendatory, but it's not, because every lender is going to give you a new amendatory to do anyway. But make sure that the purchase price is listed in here. Don't leave it blank. The purchase price as stated in this agreement, put in the amount of the purchase price. And remember that if you have a escalation clause that you won with, this number has to get changed as well. As you go down further, the information hidden commitment date. Okay, they hid it very well. I hope when they revise, they should take this and move it right down. They should move it right down into the block. Why hide it? Yeah. But it will also get auto-populated if you fill in your details in .loop appropriately. It will also fill for you. Just as I go down through the pages, page 5, nothing there to really jump over the bridge on. 6, page 7, again, these are not predetermined which one your buyer is going to take or not take. That's for a discussion for you to have and adjust accordingly. I do pre-fill the date here. The number 15 would be in on line 440. It'll be 15 days. That gets pre-filled for you when you bring your document up. If it's not pre-filling, let me know so I can fix it. But that's the pre-fill on the agreement of sale. The next pre-fill is the number of days in which a deposit can be returned. And that's critical, and I'll explain to you why later. But there is 180 days. It gets pre-filled with 60 days. I lied. 20 days. It gets pre-filled with 20 days. And what that's for is in the event that there's a deposit money and it's not getting returned because no one's allowing it to be returned. Once 20 days is gone and there's no file by either party as a dispute, the buyer can request in writing to the escrow broker to have it returned after those 20 days have passed. So that's an important one. Also, the seller is limited to retaining. That is also a pre-fill as well. Again, down in here, section line 790 is where I would refer back to. I would write, as it pertains to transfer tax, please refer to paragraph 4F above. And that's all, just so they know it. Why the form is really today is because of line number 812. We have a habit of just initialing because it comes up as a default, right. Initialing all 4 boxes, and the house was built in 2002. You don't get the lead-based paint disclosure signed because it was built after 1978, so you don't have one. Well, now you're in contradiction because here you had the buyer initial that they've received the lead-based paint disclosure. And because it's initialed here, it becomes part of the agreement of sale. But you don't have one. So you actually have an invalid agreement of sale because you don't have all the parts. So now you've got to do one of 2 things. Go get a lead-based paint filled out and signed by both parties so you have a legitimate agreement of sale, or cross it out and initial the fact that you crossed it out, or more preferably, do a new one and not initial that. And how you do that is you would click on the box, it's assigned to the buyer, and assign it to no one for both boxes. And then they would not sign that. So that's why that's really here, because you actually have an incomplete or inaccurate or invalid agreement of sale without having that, because it becomes part of. That's why you find Keith upstairs asking for these 4 documents, because they want the agreement of sale, and they don't have the agreement of sale in its entirety if they don't have the consumer notice, buyer's estimated closing cost, deposit money notice, and lead-based paint disclosure. Technically speaking, he's the only one that I know that does that so far. Any questions from Zoom land or in here on the agreement of sale? That's not very nice. I can't hear her, but I can see her. She's rolling on the floor laughing. There she is gone. Karen is rolling on the floor laughing. Okay. And it's probably because her mom is not with us. So I'm going to now stop recording this particular